Born in Mumbai in 1971 at the Air Force Hospital. India is a poor country, but what was fascinating was how expensive real estate was. So here in the US, we like to whine about, how expensive real estate is, and it is. But when you grow up in a third world country, there are people literally spending 60, 70% of gross incomes just on shelter. So there's this understanding of just how ridiculously important shelter is to the human condition that I don't think you can get when you're here in the United States. So I grew up understanding the value of real estate. My Mission 10K, is deeply tied back to that. There's an emotional connection that shelter isn't just one of the things in life. Sometimes when you live in a third world country, it's the only thing. A friend of mine invited me for food over to his place, and I went in there, and it was maybe a 2-bedroom place, and there were about 5 or 6 families living there. And I remember that because it was just, I was struck by this. It was a completely weird experience for me. And I went from being grumpy about living in a 2-bedroom apartment that had 4 people to being immensely grateful. And I think that gratefulness has permeated my whole life. I have an extreme affinity for numbers in the sense that I can't forget them. When people start asking me questions about, what is Mission 10K and how did you come up with it, you'll immediately start noticing that I give you very specific numbers. So in my mind, everything in the universe is about numbers. I love to say, if there is a God, he must be or she must be the greatest mathematician of all time, because I see order in everything. I see mathematics all around me. And so it's natural for me to be able to have insight using math. So it's not normal for people to have math level of insight into why certain things are happening. And it gives me the ability to predict what will happen next. The first time when I came into the public limelight was when I started talking about Provo, Utah 9 years ago. And all of that was tied to mathematical insights about what was happening in Provo. So I started making predictions. And as they started coming true, I started getting calls from conferences saying, you're a quant, right? Which is a fancy term for a math nerd. And we want to have a math nerd at our conference. So a lot of it was because when I measure, and you're measuring 24 hours a day, or at least 16 hours a day when I'm not asleep, as you keep measuring and you keep subtracting and dividing and multiplying, you actually start to get a weird kind of insight. And it applies not just to what I do in my day job, but it actually applies to everything in my life. I realized that my gift for number could be an advantage around the 2008 timeframe. When I came to the US in 1997, I started working in a technology company, got promoted up, and I was using numbers all the time, but I wasn't necessarily using them from a prediction perspective. I was using them to be better at my job. When you're in technology, you use a lot of numbers. So I guess I didn't realize the full potential of what was possible with what was happening in my brain until about 2007, 2008, when I started gathering massive amounts of data. I got in trouble, by the way, with the FBI for gathering data. But as I was gathering data and I was publishing it, I began to realize something that I should have realized at least 10 years ago, and this is one of my great regrets. I always thought that other people could see things the way I could. And what I didn't realize is that some of these insights that I have about cities in the United States and how they will grow and things like that are not intuitive to other people. They're intuitive to me. And so the first time I actually used this publicly was in 2008. And the reaction from people was so dramatic that I was taken aback by this. And people are like, you have to publish this on the web. You have to get this out there. This is unusual. And I'm like, no, it can't be unusual. Other people must know how to do this. No, people don't know how to do this. I wish that I'd used it before 2008, but that was when I used it for the first time.